الصلاة والسلام عليك يا
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Imran and I'm from University Technology of Malaysia. So my first things first is that I want to say that we do know that Christians, Jews and other religions, some of them might condemn Muslims nowadays, especially in social network, in the internet or maybe in the media. So my question is it necessary for us to actually rebut them back by using Al-Quran and also Hadith? Or maybe you could show me the best ways to actually rebut them back in a brilliant manner way, in a great manner, without any fight. Thank you.
Excuse me, brother. Could you please tell your name and where you're from?
My name is Imran from UTM, University Technology of Malaysia.
Thank you very much.
At all times, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given a norm of conduct which should be adhered to at all times. It's difficult sometimes, Even for Imran to say it is difficult sometimes. But the norm is Qulu lin-nasi husna. Speak to people in a manner which is most becoming. Speak to people in a nice way. That's the norm for conversation, for dialogue. However, when dialogue reaches a stage of debate with one another, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala again gives the norm. وَجَادِلْهُمْ بِالَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ. That even in debate, you're not allowed to start flinging all kinds of vulgar words at each other that you find on the internet. No. You must at all times, particularly when you engage in dialogue with non-Muslims, no matter how much they provoke you, once it's a dialogue, your language should always be good language. If, however, a Muslim or a non-Muslim, it doesn't matter who it is, comes and steals your sheep from you, and he has your sheep, and you're trying to get it back, you can't get it back. Justice is not being done. You are allowed to use violent language with him, yes. Okay? So the answer to you is, at all times, be courteous in your language, be refined in your language, yes. Loud, Shaheen, loud.
The sheer magnitude of the opposition against Islam is really a measure of the threat Islam poses. The enemies ostensibly know the Quran better than Muslims, of course with Wallah. While we know from Surah Al-Mu'minun, number 23, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ, we will win. But we don't have to be on the defensive. Empowering ourselves and preparing ourselves can only be through the Quran and Sunnah. Thank you.
I think that was more of a comment than a question. Yeah, okay. Okay, Mahmoud from Palestine.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Mahmoud Al-Qaqa from Palestine, UAE.
Hafiz Mahmoud.
Inshallah. Okay, Maulana, my beloved Maulana teacher, Jazakallah khairan. I want to ask you something. Do you think now all the media, they focus on just the Syrian issue and they forget Palestine issue? So what the main purpose or secret behind this? Maybe this gives the Zionists more opportunity to do what they want or what they plan to do in the Masjid al-Aqsa. Do you agree in this?
Okay.
The first talk that we had this morning from Professor Dr. Azmi Hassan, I wish he had done some more in what he gave to us. The Zionists have perfected these instruments. One is called Twitter. I never met Twitter, so I don't know much about it. The other one is called Facebook. I've never seen Facebook, so I don't know what she looks like. I don't know whether there's a nose book as well. SMS is called text messages. You send me a text, you wait 5,000 years for an answer. Because I don't know how to text. But these gadgetry, these instruments, were created to perform certain functions beneficial to the Zionists. And we have seen how they have used it skillfully in the Arab Spring. It was at use, it was at work in Tunisia and then in Egypt, and it's now being used very forcefully in Turkey to take a local protest and cause it to grow into a national conflagration, a big fire. The Zionists have attacked Syria. And the reason why they have launched this attack on Syria is because it is linked to Palestine. Where is Mahmoud? Yeah. It's linked to Palestine. Israel is now poised. If you have read Jerusalem in the Quran, you will know about Yawmun Kasana, Yawmun Kashahr, Yawmun Kajum'a, وَسَائِرُ أَيَّامِهِ كَأَيَّامِكُمْ. If you're not shaking your heads, it means you've not read the Hadith. The Zionists are now poised because Yawmun Kashahr is coming to an end. And Yawmun Kajum'a is about to commence. Israel has to replace the United States of America as the third and last ruling state, Zionist ruling state. If you study Islamic eschatology, you will know what I'm talking about. In order for Israel to replace the United States of America and become the ruling state in the world, Israel has to come out from behind the hijab. And Israel has to take the initiative herself in waging great wars, of course with NATO's assistance. In those wars, one of Israel's primary objectives would be to establish a political and economic dominion over the Arabs. Israel is now poised. If you have read Jerusalem in the Quran, you will know about Yawmun Kasana, Yawmun Kashahr, Yawmun Kajum'a, وَسَائِرُ أَيَّامِهِ كَأَيَّامِكُمْ. If you're not shaking your heads, it means you've not read the Hadith. The Zionists are now poised because Yawmun Kashahr is coming to an end. And Yawmun Kajum'a is about to commence. Israel has to replace the United States of America as the third and last ruling state, Zionist ruling state. If you study Islamic eschatology, you will know what I'm talking about. In order for Israel to replace the United States of America and become the ruling state in the world, Israel has to come out from behind the hijab. And Israel has to take the initiative herself in waging great wars, of course with NATO's assistance. In those wars, one of Israel's primary objectives would be to establish a political and economic dominion over the Arabs. The Arabs are vast in number, and so it will be very convenient for Israel if the Arabs can be decimated and be reduced in number. And Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam said that's going to happen through biological warfare, plague. And the plague is going to kill you the way it kills Ghana, the sheep. And at that time only Makkah and Medina could provide safety. It's not only biological warfare, Israel will have to launch a ground invasion of Egypt. Why? Why would Egypt be attacked? If you studied eschatology, you would know that in order for Israel to gain legitimacy as the true holy Israel of Sulaiman alayhi salam and Dawood alayhi salam, Israel has to expand her territory to encompass the biblical frontiers, which of course are false. From the river of Egypt to the river Euphrates. So Israel has to take that entire territory, which is called the Eastern Delta, from the river Nile to the Red Sea. In order for Egypt to launch that attack, Israel to launch that attack on Egypt, Israel needs to have what is known as casus belli. Israel doesn't want to wage great wars and appear to the world as an aggressor. No, Dajjal is not that stupid. So what Israel has planned is the Arab Spring, which will bring so-called Islamic governments to power. And these Islamic governments will be led by you-know-who, the people who are taking US dollars and US arms for Libya. Some of them are my students, the Salafis, but most of them I don't know why, they can't see. And as these Islamic governments come to power, and they are speaking fire and brimstone against Israel, casus belli will eventually emerge, so that Israel can claim to the world that she is now in mortal danger. And these fanatical Muslims want to cut our throats and throw us in the sea. That's why Israel needs regime change in Syria. She needs to have an Islamic government, a so-called Islamic government in Syria. And that Islamic government will be talking fire and brimstone against Israel, so that Israel will have casus belli to wage the great wars which are already planned. But there was a fly in the ointment. There was an obstacle in the way. Syria has not become another Libya thanks to one man. And today we salute him. Vladimir Putin of Russia stood up. He stood up and did not allow them to intervene militarily. So they were forced to send in their Dajjal's warriors across the border to fight. Mercenaries they are. And that's how Syria so far has been saved. But if the protests continue in Turkey, and escalate, then eventually Turkey may do what I know was planned for it, to launch an invasion of Syria. If Turkey launches an invasion of Syria, then you must know that that's the first step that's going to lead to the Great War, or the Malhama that Nabi Muhammad is spoken about. Over to you.
Okay, thank you. I have one question here, first from one of our participants. What are reforms and roles of OIC to function as an Islamic caliphate? Is eschatology, for instance, unity of the Ummah, make sulh with Rome and led way to Pax Islamica?
The OIC is called the Organization of the Islamic Conference, which is a very strange English construction. Because the original is not English, it was French. L'Organisation de la Conférence Islamique, that's what it was in French. And then they had to translate to English, Organization of the Islamic Conference. I did research on the topic, PhD research on the topic. How did this name come into being? But the more important thing is that the OIC was created to bring together the so-called Muslim nation states. Can a Muslim nation state with claims to territorial sovereignty, with a constitution, with a flag and a national anthem, can a Muslim nation state be a legitimate substitute for the Islamic Khilafah? Dr. Muhammad Iqbal is a great scholar, and we admire him, respect him. Oh yes, we consider him to be a teacher, Dr. Muhammad Iqbal. In Pakistan, of course, he is more than that. He is the spiritual father of Pakistan. But it is no disrespect of a student to a teacher to point out in a very respectful way a mistake which the teacher has made. And to recognize that even while we are pointing out the mistake that the teacher made, he still remains a great teacher and a great scholar. It is in this context that I wrote Iqbal and Pakistan, Moment of Truth. That book is outside, small booklet, in which I pointed out that Iqbal misled the Muslims of South Asia when he declared in his book, The Reconstruction of Religious Thought in Islam, that he agreed with the so-called Turkish ijtihad, so-called in my word, the Turkish ijtihad of Mustafa Kemal al-Atatürk, that the modern state, republican state, with its parliament, is an adequate substitute for the Khilafah. Iqbal made a mountain of a mistake. And so as a consequence of that, there are so many millions of Pakistanis today who live for Pakistan, who will die for Pakistan. Our greatest loyalty is to Pakistan. My own son was born in Pakistan, and I had to listen to my own son talking like that when he was a teenager. Supreme loyalty is to Pakistan. You've forgotten the Khilafah. Iqbal misled generations of Muslims in South Asia who now dutifully go election after election to vote in the election, and nothing changes. Nothing changes. You just had an election in Pakistan. Has anything changed? They still roll from Washington. It is the Khilafah state which will return. And then we return to the Quran and Sunnah. The OIC didn't think about that, and they don't accept that. The OIC, however, experienced a moment of light and of hope when the October War took place in 1973 and Israel took Jerusalem. Then Malik Faisal, rahimahullah, woke up from his sleep. Prior to that, he was just another Saudi. But after that, he became a true Muslim. And so I say, Faisal, rahimahullah. And between the outbreak of the war and within, I think, 1 week or so, he imposed an oil boycott on the United States of America. Do you think any Saudi will do that today? And that oil boycott of the United States of America reverberated around the world. And the price of oil increased by 400% within 1 year. And there's another leader in Pakistan who is universally reviled in Pakistan. They don't like him. A man named Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. Yes, he had his weaknesses, but he was also a genius. And Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, to his credit, and it doesn't matter me one bit if Pakistanis are annoyed with me, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, to his credit, recognized an opportunity. And he then made an alliance with Faisal to see whether we can take this OIC and make it into something meaningful, tangible, that will protect and promote the interests of the world of Islam. And so Faisal and Bhutto decided to host an Islamic Summit Conference. One had been held in Rabat in Morocco in September 1971 or 69, okay. And now in 1974, February 74, the second one is going to be held in Lahore. But this one is going to be different. This one is going to be the first event since the abolition of the Khilafah. Now the world of Islam was coming together in a meaningful and tangible way to do something to restore power. And they worked, the Pakistan Foreign Office worked day and night. They didn't sleep. And within a matter of a few months, they organized the Lahore Islamic Summit Conference. Henry Kissinger warned them, don't do it, we make a horrible example of you. The Shah of Iran came in and tried to stop them. They didn't listen to him. Everybody tried. But Faisal and Bhutto stood firmly. And the Lahore Islamic Summit Conference took place in February 1974. And from it emerged at least a program for economic growth and development that made sense. And guess what happened after that? 2 months later, India detonated the first nuclear explosion. And Indira Gandhi's India joined the nuclear club to send a message to the world of Islam. We will not allow you to succeed. And then the next year, again a Zionist plot, and Faisal was assassinated. And as soon as Faisal was assassinated, Saudi foreign policy made a U-turn. They abandoned Faisal. Probably even before he was buried, they left him and they abandoned him. That's what his brothers did. Within a moment, Saudi foreign policy turned a U-turn, went back to be a faithful ally of the Zionist West. That was 75. It took a little longer, 1 year more in 76, and the elections took place in Pakistan. And I have the evidence. They call them mules. The United States CIA will send them with suitcases filled with dollars. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. to use those dollars to influence elections. One of these men was a professor in the United States, Pakistani. And he told me, Imran, I took one of those briefcases with me. He confessed to me. And when Bhutto saw what the CIA was doing, but then he also made his plans and he rigged the elections. And he won the elections. And then the Zia-ul-Haq took over and the Pakistan Armed Forces entered into the scheme. And Zia-ul-Haq at that time, may Allah forgive him, he was playing the Zionist game as well. And then Bhutto was arrested and eventually he was hanged. And so they got rid of Faisal and they got rid of Bhutto, and the OIC has remained from that day to this day just a little tea shop for talking shop. It has no role to play in the future of this Ummah. Sorry to take so much of your time.
Okay, I believe we have one more question from our brother here. Please proceed.
Assalamualaikum, Sheikh. Just now you mentioned about, you used the term Zionist state of Saudi Arabia and Zionist state of Qatar. Does that mean that similar to Masjid Al-Aqsa, even now the Zionists are actually invading the Holy Land of Mecca through the Saudi family ruling? That's my question.
Makkah and Medina are not Al-Ardul Muqaddasa. Al-Ardul Muqaddasa is a term used in the Quran. يا قوم ادخلوا الأرض المقدسة التي كتب الله لكم. So Ard al-Muqaddasa is where Israel is not squatting, not Makkah and Medina. The Saudis entered into an alliance with Britain in 1916. The First World War started in 1940. And they entered into the alliance in 1916 with Britain. Britain was the ruling state of the world in 1916. And as a consequence of that alliance, the Saudis now agreed to play the game on Britain's behalf. And Britain agreed to pay Saudi Arabia £5,000 a month. Was it a month or a year? Jalal? A month? £5,000 a month from Britain. That was the payoff. So there is an alliance there. And when the Saudi people from the Ikhwan, not Ikhwan al-Muslimun, this is another Ikhwan, questioned him about how could you be taking money from Britain? Abdulaziz ibn Saud replied and said, this is jizya. This is jizya. That when a non-Muslim people wish to reside in Darul Islam, these are not the people who have been living there forever. These are people who you have fought in jihad and defeated, but they want to continue to reside in Darul Islam. Then they'll be given the title Ahlul Dhimma, and they'll have to pay jizya. And the Quran speaks an yadin wa hum sabirun. They can't send the check by post. They can't send a messenger with it. You've got to come in person to pay. And in the process of paying the jizya, it is a symbol of your submission to the rule of Islam in that territory. And Abdulaziz ibn Saud said, this is jizya. Abdulaziz ibn Saud and his Saudi regime continued to play the Saudi game, the British game and the American game, until when Israel was about to be created in 1948. 3 years prior to the birth of Israel, President Roosevelt went on an American warship, and the warship anchored in the Suez Canal. There are some lakes in the Suez Canal. And he sent another American warship called the Quincy to pick up Abdulaziz in Jeddah and bring him there. to the Suez Canal, so they could have a tete-a-tete. Roosevelt and Abdulaziz cementing the Saudi-American alliance. If Saudi Arabia had any legitimacy, if Saudi Arabia cared one whit about Islam, then you sell your oil for gold, and the whole Zionist empire will collapse. That's all you have to do. But Henry Kissinger went to Riyadh after that stage-managed 73 war, because the Zionists were both sides of the war. And they wanted the war to end in a draw. And after the oil boycott, and the Zionists wanted him to impose the oil boycott. They knew he was going to do it. He threatened them that he was going to impose an oil boycott. And the oil boycott caused the price of oil to increase by 400% within 1 year. So Kissinger waited for the price of oil to increase that much. And the dollars are now flowing in. Flowing in. The Arabs never had it so rich. Then Kissinger went to Riyadh to make the deal, which was a haram deal. And the Saudis betrayed us. Kissinger said to Faisal, and on Judgment Day you will be able to listen to the conversation, that you have to do only one thing, and we guarantee you that this $12 a barrel for oil that you're now getting, this is peanuts. You're going to be getting much, much, much more than that. You're going to get so much money that even that hadith will come to fulfillment. If you want to pay your zakat and you can't find anyone who will accept the zakat. You know that hadith? Of Akhir Zaman?
Yes.
That you want to pay your zakat and you can't find anyone who will accept your zakat. This is the amount of money that will come your way. You'll be rich, fabulously rich. You've got to do only one thing. And we in the United States will guarantee your security. Guarantee, which means an alliance. All that you have to do is to lay down the rule that you are going to sell your oil for US dollars. That's all. And Faisal, may Allah forgive him, probably didn't have the knowledge. Most of them don't have the knowledge, really, our leaders. And he fell for the trap. And Saudi Arabia announced that you're going to sell their oil for only US dollars. And then Saudi Arabia got all the Arab oil producing countries to come into line. And then OPEC also. And as a consequence, the US dollar became stronger than ever before. And the US dollar has not only survived, it has remained the king to this day. But now that Israel has to take over from the United States, the US dollar has to collapse. And it's on its way to collapse. So there is absolutely no doubt about it whatsoever that those who control power in Saudi Arabia are friends and allies of the Zionists. And so indirectly the Zionists control the Hajj. And indirectly the Zionists control the Haramain.
Okay. Since that it's almost 5, I will allow only one question. Only one question. Assalamualaikum. My name is Rasis bin Razali, student of University Technology Malaysia, and I have 2 questions. The first question is about your statement earlier in the session. You said that Iblis is a jinn, but I learned that jinn have two types, which is jinn Islam and jinn kafir. And can you give a detailed explanation about that? And the second question is, everybody know about Adolf Hitler, right? And I believe you know about him too. Well, we know that Adolf Hitler killed many Jews during his era. So I want to know about you. Are you agree that he is the one who Muslims should be proud or not? Because he kills many Jews, even though he is not a Muslim. That's my question.
Okay. Quran, I never said that Iblis. I never said that Iblis is a jinn. Did I? No. I said Allah said so. Okay? Allah said that Iblis is a jinn. Elsewhere in the Quran, Allah describes him in consequence of his refusal to submit as a kafir. So he's not a mu'min. He's not a jinn who is mu'min. There are jinn who are mu'min and there are jinn who are kafir. That's the first question. The second question, I have been reading about Adolf Hitler, but I need to do far more reading on the subject. I can only speak at this time about his economic and his monetary policies. And it is surprising that Germany under Adolf Hitler was able to extricate itself from the grip of the Zionist monetary system by dispensing with the German mark, which had lost its value. You needed one wheelbarrow of German marks to buy a loaf of bread. That's what they did to the German mark. They did the same thing to the Zimbabwe dollar. When I arrived in Harare at the airport, I wanted to make a telephone call. They said it was going to cost $2 million. I warned the Iranian diplomats that I had lunch with 2 days ago that this is the fate that awaits now the Iranian Riyal. Why don't you wake up and return to dinar and dirham? But they did not study the subject. They didn't understand the subject at all. So I had to leave the subject. But this is what Hitler did. And the German economy, within a brief period of about 4 or 5 years, became the strongest economy in Europe. Why? The Zionists hated Adolf Hitler because he was able to extricate himself and his country from their monetary embrace. Okay, next question.
Okay, before anybody address the question this year, actually maybe many of us haven't had our Asam prayers yet. This is final. I will allow only 2 short questions, and the first one I will be given to the subject.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Tifi. I'm from Iraq. My question is about 2 days ago, on Thursday, that they make a fatwa for doing jihad in Syria. So my question is that why they do not make a fatwa jihad in Gaza or in Burma? This is my question.
The declaration of jihad made by Dr. Yusuf al-Qaradawi a few days ago is, in English, it's a word with 4 letters in it. J-O-K-E, joke. It is sad for me to speak like this of an elder who has devoted his life to Islamic scholarship and who has produced so many books. It is not a pleasant thing at all. But what has to be said must be said so that people can be guided and be warned. This is a joke. If you are now declared jihad, or what has happened over the last 2 years, that your boys were going into Syria with money that you provided them and weapons that you provided them. Were they fighting a jihad? If they died while fighting, were they shaheed? Or is it that the jihad is only now starting? This looks like a joke. Because all those of your boys, your sons who you sent into Syria, they went into Syria declaring that this is jihad. And you are now declaring jihad. Were you sleeping all the time, Dr. Qaradawi? Number 2, when a declaration of jihad is made, is it only binding on your boys? Or is it also binding on the government of Saudi Arabia and the government of Qatar? After all, your boys don't have an army. Your boys don't have aircraft. But the government of Saudi Arabia has so much arms they bought from the United States up to their teeth. And Qatar and Jordan and Egypt. How come these countries have treated you with such disrespect, Dr. Qaradawi? You and the other ulama have declared jihad and they just turn their backs on you and they go whistling home. They have treated you with great disrespect. A declaration of jihad ought to be respected if it is a valid declaration. And it is binding on all Muslims, not just your boys. It is binding on Saudi Arabia, and on Qatar, on Jordan, and all the other countries. And so I think that Dr. Qaradawi is losing it now, perhaps in old age. May Allah guide him on the right path. Next question.
Okay, this will be the final question.
Of course, you know my position. I call it a Yankee jihad.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I just have one very simple question to Sheikh Imran. It refers to, does OIC achieve an objective to unite the Muslim Ummah with regard to protect the Muslim interest in this world? As a force, OIC as a force to cooperate with regard to Muslim human rights, economic, social responsibility, and so forth and so forth. So lastly, one simple answer, and one simple question and one simple answer. Does you agree OIC could be regarded as OIC?
Yes, it used to be Organization of the Islamic Conference. And then sometime later they changed it to Organization of Islamic Cooperation, I think. But it's still OIC.
I don't think that in Akhir Zaman the OIC has any residual legitimacy or status or role to play. The time is now too late. If Turkey attacks Syria, I think that will be the commencement of the great wars, which will culminate with what the Prophet ﷺ called the Malhama, and the Christians called Armageddon. After the Great War has taken place, then comes the Fathul Constantinia, or the conquest of Constantinople. 79 million Turks are of the view, passionately held, that Sultan Muhammad Fatih is the man the Prophet spoke about, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, when he said, لَتَفْتَحَنَّ الْقُنْسْتَنْتِنِيَّةِ وَلَنِعْمَ الْأَمِيرُ آمِرُهَا وَلَنِعْمَ الْجَيْشُ ذَلِكَ الْجَيْشُ. That you will most certainly conquer Constantinople. And he praised the commander of the army, and he praised the army. I gave a lecture at the International Islamic University last year, in which I challenged this view. No, the conquest of Constantinople is still to come. The one that is prophesied by Nabi Muhammad ﷺ, it is still to come. And when it comes, that conquest of Constantinople will break the back of NATO. And so Constantinople will no longer be controlled by NATO. And when that occurs, then the Russian fleet will have a free passage through the Bosphorus into the Mediterranean, with perilous implications for Israel. This was a lecture I gave about 1 year ago at the International Islamic University. But I challenged the view that Sultan Muhammad Fatih could have been that Amir. I said the first thing that he did when he entered Constantinople as the conqueror, the first thing that he did was to declare of the greatest cathedral of Rome, meaning Orthodox Christianity, not the Vatican, the greatest cathedral of Rome, which had been functioning as the greatest cathedral for 1,000 years, Hagia Sophia, and shamefully and disgracefully and manifestly sinfully transformed it into a masjid, to the eternal shame and disgrace of this ummah. We don't take churches and transform them into masajid. No. I said on that day, when we conquer Constantinople, we're going to take Hagia Sophia and give it back to the Christians and say, this is your church. This is your cathedral. And secondly, we're going to extend an apology to that Christian world, which extends from Russia through Greece all the way to Bulgaria and across in Armenia. And the third thing that we'll do is to restore the name of the city to the name that came out of the blessed lips of Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. The blessed lips of the Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam referred to the city as Constantinople. So Mustafa Kamal, you can't stop me from using the name Constantinople. I don't think the OIC has any role to play in the events which are now leading to the Malhama, to the conquest of Constantinople, to the Khuruj of Dajjal, and finally to a Muslim army destroying the state of Israel.